Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about some books about shamanism, and I have 4 books here that I particularly like, and they all approach shamanism in a slightly different way. And all 4 of the books are very good books. There's just one book that might be a bit hard to get, but otherwise the other 3 are quite easy to get. So the first one is called The Heart of Life by Hughes. And Hughes is a British shaman and healer. So this book was published in recent years, about 3 years ago. And this book is a bit different because it mainly approaches shamanism from a healing perspective, and particularly ancestral healing. So this book, I think, is really beneficial, and I love the way that it's a combination between a shamanic approach and the ancestral healing. And it actually approaches ancestral healing from a nature perspective, and it actually approaches it in quite a deep way, so that each chapter is really looking at this from an inner work point of view. So I'm really impressed with this book. There are other books around that are about ancestral healing, but I think to take a nature and shamanic approach to the inner work that's needed for ancestral healing, this is a really worthwhile book. So I want to particularly recommend this one for people who are interested in the ancestral healing for inner work and a combined nature and shamanic approach. So The Heart of Life by Hughes. The next book is quite a well-regarded book. This is the one that will probably be hard to get, but you might be able to get a copy on Amazon. This one is North Star Road by Kenneth. It was published by Llewellyn quite a number of years ago. And what is different about this book is that it is a shamanic approach, but it's combined with witchcraft as well. So it's looking at the shamanic tradition that has links also to witchcraft, and it talks particularly about shape-shifting and totem animals. So this book is really well regarded by people not only interested in shamanism, but it's also recommended for people who are interested in witchcraft, but they want to have a more shamanic approach. So I particularly like this book, and it's worth getting if you can get a copy on Amazon. So this one's North Star Road by Kenneth. The next one I'm really pleased to have gotten recently, a new edition of Singing the Soul Back Home by Llewellyn. This is a revised edition. I'm really pleased to get a copy of this book. I saw this book a few years ago and didn't get the book then, and almost gave up hope that this might be republished. And I was really pleased when I saw this recently. It's been published by a branch of Connections Publishing, who has published the tarot and oracle decks of Caitlin and John Matthews. This book is written by Caitlin Matthews. It's got lots of ideas in here about a shamanic approach. There's lots of ideas that you could use as practical exercises. You could use them as journal prompts. It covers dreaming, dreams, nature and totem animals, and it looks at shamanism particularly from the British and Northern European perspective. So it looks at the tradition of the upper, middle and lower world tree perspective. And there is some ancestral work in here as well. And I just love the way it is organised into the three parts for the upper world, middle world and lower world perspective. So it's taking each of those three areas separately through the chapters. So I'm really pleased to get this book. For people who really like Caitlin Matthews, as I do, she has written so many great books. And for people who particularly want this shamanic approach in regard to the British and Northern European tradition, it's really worthwhile getting. I just love the way that it's a practical book as well as a spiritual and informative book. And I just love the way that it explains shamanism from the Western tradition. So it's a great book. Singing the Soul Back Home by Caitlin Matthews. And the last book is by Caitlin and John Matthews, and I was really pleased to pick this book up recently as well. It's called Walkers Between the Worlds. And this book is also a kind of revised edition. It was originally available in a book called The Western Way, which was about the Western mystery tradition, and I did not get that copy at that stage, which I probably should have, but I'm glad I've got this now. And I think even before that, this was in two separate volumes. So now it's all in one volume. It's been renamed Walkers Between the Worlds. And it's called Walkers Between the Worlds because the first half of the book is about the shamanic tradition of the Western tradition, which is the Northern European and British tradition. And then the second part of the book is being called the Hermetic tradition, which is about magic and alchemy. And the first part of the book about the shamanic tradition, they actually call that the native tradition because it is about the European indigenous shamanism and nature spirituality and the whole background and ideas and beliefs about that. And then the second half is this Hermetic tradition that came later and was particularly linked to alchemy. So it is a great book. There is so much information and insight in this book. It's really worth having, especially if you are interested in the Western tradition, spirituality, and you are interested in the two different approaches and getting a better understanding of each of the traditions. It's a really great book, and I'm so pleased to get this edition of this now, because anyone who wants to know particularly about the Western mystery tradition would have basically everything they need to know for their background foundational knowledge from this book. So this one is Walkers Between the Worlds by Caitlin and John Matthews. So there are 4 books about shamanism that are all a bit different, but they're all great books. And I'll put the details below the video. And as I was saying, the only one of the 4 that will be a bit difficult to get is the North Star Road book. But otherwise, the other 3 books will be quite easy to get. So I'll put the details below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.